Cam says, let's get it. So we listen to the man who makes it all work here for us each and every Wednesday night. So let's all do it for the next 60 here, folks. Leave those comments, questions there in the live chat. We will get to them. Of course, the super chats take preference or precedence there. Either one. We can go either one on that. And of course, there's so much to talk about concerning Miami's work on the recruiting path. So dig in. And again, comments, questions there in the chat. Hit the like button. You know you will. So you might as well just get that out of the way. Cam Underwood, State of the U, joining us as always. Cam, how you doing tonight?
Good, man. Good. Glad to be back. Hope you guys enjoyed your 4th of July and all of that. I let y'all know early in advance last time that I had a scheduling conflict for last week Wednesday at 7 from well ahead of that. So I hope that did not catch you guys unaware, because I let you know as soon as that happened, a good little bit in front. But that being said, back in action. So good to be here. Glad to have y'all, and excited to talk about the Hurricanes as we are under 50 days till kickoff.
Yes, we are. Miami versus Miami, but still in that recruiting mode and looking forward to 2024 before we really kick it in with ACC media kickoff here in a couple of weeks. And then that heads us right into August camp. Mm-hmm. Marquis Lightfoot is at the top of the board right now as the top rated commit for 2024, coming off the edge. And based at least on my information, that was a slight surprise.
There was fierce competition for Mr. Lightfoot, so it was a little bit of a toss-up there where, you have to go head-to-head against other elite programs. Your Alabamas, your Georgias, your Ohio States, you got to go up against those kind of teams. And, to get the roster that we want, you have to win some of those battles. And Jason Taylor and company went into Chicago, Kenwood Academy, and did just that. So, 6'5", 225 edge rusher. As you can see on the far side of the screen there, Composite has him 128th in the country, 247's proprietary rankings, like their own individual site rankings, have him as 62 in the country. So they're a little bit higher on him than the consensus. But either way that you slice it, this is a top tier kid. He should be an All-American. Great size. He's 6'5" with a positive wingspan. So, he's probably getting that, just with longer arms than his normal height is what I mean. So he has the reach and the length on the side, quick burst. This is a kid who can profile into a, potential first round draft pick kind of edge rusher. And, before you roll your eyes at that, we've had some, that being Jalen Phillips, those being Gregory Rousseau, type players, and he can profile with development there. A thing that I think that I'm going to lean into a little bit more until we see all of the players, well, maybe not for defensive end, but at other positions, because defensive end, we've seen guys hit the ceiling for their potential more than miss their ceiling. But really leaning into what would a mid-level development be for him? Because it's funny, everybody, a lot of Canes fans yesterday were reliving some of the performances of years past, and talked about, hey, there was this guy and this guy and this guy. I said that the trio of Bradley Jennings Jr., DeAndre Wilder, and Wayman Steed is one of the worst linebacker groups in a signing class for Miami that I've ever seen. People were like, well, he wasn't saying that then. And I was like, yeah, because I was looking at the top end of what their development could be. So, hey, that's fine. We can also add the mid-level. So, I mean, I think that, when you get a player of Marquis Lightfoot's size and pedigree, you have to think that this is a multi-year starter in your program. You have to, as the floor. You know what I mean? Even if it's, trusty Trent Harris, we all, kind of made fun of him and everything. He was a, mid-high 3-star. He was a little undersized, but that man did his job and he was always there. He was steady. He was consistent. So the errors in performance that led to, breakout passes and runs, that things that were designed to manipulate what he did on the field, those didn't really happen when he was here because he was consistent. And that's something to be proud of. So even if you're thinking, hey, Marquis Lightfoot at the floor should be Trent Harris, I think that's a really good get. Then you add in the fact that he's uncommonly sized at 6'5", 225, and is coming here to be coached by NFL Hall of Famer Jason Taylor, who also shares, similar dimensions. Then you can really look at, and also, again, you look at the development and performance of players at this position, past and present. Then you can say, okay, cool. It stands to reason that absent injury, Marquis Lightfoot could or should hit, the 75 percentile or higher in his trajectory and development. But, whichever way you slice it, this is the highest rated player in the class at present. Another, blue chipper to join the group. Still not one of the 5 stars that Miami's been chasing or anything, but this is a very good get. This is a very good get in a vacuum, as in regardless of anything else going on in the recruiting world, getting Marquis Lightfoot is a good get. It's an even better get when you consider, number one, can you hear me?
Now we got you back. We lost you for about 3 seconds. Keep going.
But if you consider some of the misses that have been going on, and also what Miami needs in this recruiting class, so you put the context into it, it's a good get. So in a vacuum, in context, however you want to slice it, Marquis Lightfoot coming, committing to the U, big move, big step forward, and hopefully that will continue to, gain Miami more momentum as we move through the rest of this very hot South Florida summer. My goodness.
Yeah, I've heard. If it's 90 here, then yeah, it must be rather toasty there.
It was cooking. I have a friend of mine who runs every morning before work, and they were like, "Yo, I got up to go outside and run at 5:30, and it was already 80-some degrees." I was like, "Yeah, it was. Yeah. It's been that kind of toasty, but
yeah.
Regardless of that, we move on.
Texas toasty out there too, in Arizona, and it's all over the place.
Yeah,
heard 110 in Palm Springs the other day.
Sheesh.
Deryc Plazz, offensive tackle, not quite the prospect, but you never know because, hey, that's why they recruit and scout and sign these guys at 6'5", 290, 73rd rated at his position out of Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah, Deryc Plazz is a guy who I think is going to be one of the many players in this class whose ranking rises through his senior year. He chose Miami over NC State and Fui. I forget the other team. I had to click into his profile. The Penn State. So 2 teams that are pretty well known for evaluating and developing offensive line talent, right? And he picked Miami, made that push for him in Jacksonville Mandarin High School. And this is a kid, 6'5", 295, an actual tackle. And remember, Miami for years had struggled to get tackle-sized bodies. We were playing guys out of position, a Trevor Darling, for example. He's a guard all day, every day. But we ended up playing him outside. And yeah, this is a guy who, if you look at the ranking right now, I don't believe that that's really representative of him as a player or where his ranking is going to end up. I think that he's maybe a more low floor, high ceiling player than Lightfoot, where Lightfoot is like a mid floor, mid upper floor, like he's, more of a blue chip. So I think the variance is, absent injury is not as great. But yeah, Plazz is a guy. First of all, weird name spelling. If you're listening just to the podcast, Deryc is Deryc for his first name. Plazz, Plazz. But yeah, so he fits the physical profile for an actual tackle, and you love to see that. And this backs up, Miami in the last recruiting cycle got, who was the player? It was hold on, I have to go look because it is evading me. Not Okunlola or Mauagoa, like duh. We know them. We remember them. Tommy Kinsler, 6'6", 330 last year, who's a guy who can play inside or outside, but he has the height and length to actually stick at tackle, even though we had the 2 5-star tackles in front of him. But that was a guy who ended up as a 4-star down the line. You know what I mean? Like he, went through the process and committed to Florida for a cup of coffee and flipped and everything. But Deryc Plazz, he fits everything that you're looking for. And from a physical standpoint, I believe his performance is going to start to back that up even more. This is a guy whose best football is ahead of him. There was maybe a lack of development his first couple of years in high school, just because, sometimes that happens at high schools, especially in Florida, where there's a minor coaching crisis thing going on because, they don't pay nothing. So there's a lot of good coaches who've gone elsewhere. So that means in their absences, some of the players, sometimes they're just not always developed. Like sometimes schools don't develop the position that you play very well. And I think that hit with Plazz early on. But, this is a guy who should at least be a program player at Miami, if not better. But you're looking at, probably 3 or 4 years from now till he plays meaningful rotation snaps at Miami. This is not a guy like Francis Mauagoa, because Mauagoa is probably going to start at right tackle for the Hurricanes this year. And then Okunlola, the other 5-star, is probably going to be in the 2 deep and play rotational snaps, as true freshmen, however many months out of high school, 8 or 9 months, because they were both early enrollees. Fine, cool, got it. But Deryc Plazz is not going to be that. Deryc Plazz is going to be along the lines of, these are players that I brought up in the past, even though they played inside in Miami. But, that Danny Isidoro from Weston Cypress Bay, who didn't really play until his 3rd year, ended up 2nd team all-conference. John Feliciano from Davie Western High School down here in South Florida. Another guy who didn't play for, 3-4 years, but he ends up, he was the one, I think both of them were 2nd team or honorable mention all-conference. And then Jonathan Feliciano, I believe, is still in the NFL. But, to this day, a decade on from, just kind of being, a middling 3-star kind of recruit. And that can happen along the offensive line. And I think that with Deryc Plazz, if you have that or better, then you're in a really good spot. But you have the ingredients here to make a gourmet meal. You know what I mean? Like you have a guy of actual 6'5" height, not 6'5" list, like they listed me, like I told you years ago. I'm 6 feet tall. They listed me at 6'4", 6'5" in my high school basketball, program when I first made varsity as a sophomore. And I'm like, do we have another Underwood number 24? Because that's a big stretch. You know what I mean? This is not that. This is a guy who's actually that kind of a size. But to unlock that potential, you're going to have to put in the time to develop his technique and develop his body. But all that being said, this is another good get for the offensive line, and you can take a chance, quote unquote, on a Deryc Plazz type player when you just brought in 2 of the 3 best 5-star offensive tackles the year before. So this goes to the question, I forget his name, but the USC guy asked in here maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. He was like, what's going on with the offensive line recruiting for Miami? Here it is. You're getting the kind of mid to long-term development prospects to fit in behind the superstars at the position that you need. And more than anything else, I think offensive line is a development over time position. You're rarely going to get those, supremely sized and talented guys to step in and play, day one, year one. Wisconsin's made a living for 40 years on developmental dudes with the exception of like 3. You know what I mean? So getting that time to get, the mango seasons, just the puberty all the way through, just that grown man strength, because there's a difference of a 19-year-old offensive lineman and like a 22-year, you know what I mean? Like it's just to get that maturity to them. And I think that, if you're going to enact that kind of a process, a player and a prospect like Deryc Plazz really does fit that, and it supports the overall, again, mid and long-term trajectory of the offensive line and that offensive line room.
It's where the term grown man applies right there. There's just something about having that that frame fill out just a little bit more, and that
it
girth
is
a little bit more. Yeah.
I had a cousin who played, I had two cousins who played college baseball. One played for a year. He went to West Point and then didn't play. And the other one went to Morehouse. And we were on a family cruise some years ago. And the younger one, he went to Morehouse and then transferred to Western Michigan. But as leading his team to state championship game or state semifinals, his senior year in high school, I forget whichever one it was, but my younger cousin decided I'm going to buck up and I'm going to run up against Cam. And I was like, bro, I even at the time, I'm like, I don't be in the gym and I'm not even the biggest, but I got some mature grown man strength to me. And you don't want the problems. And then, it was funny because it was in the cabin that we were sharing on this cruise we went on years ago. And, he came at me and he attacked me from behind. And then, the wrestling match ensued. And he's lighter skinned than I am. And at the end, I kind of had my elbow across his face, like his face was turned to the side. I was like, yo, are you done? He's like, all right, cool. So we go to dinner on the boat that night. And hey, it's whatever. And we went with his parents. And my aunt was just like, oh my God, Andrew, what happened? Because he had this bright red thing across his face. And I was like, hey, look, he came at me. I had to defend myself. And it wasn't even, again, like I was in the gym repping out, 415 or whatever. Nah, I just had a couple of years of just growth and development. I was in my, early mid-20s and he was still in high school. He didn't have that oomph yet. And even though, he could probably throw up more than me in the weight room, still got dealt with. And, those things happen, but especially on the offensive line, that just overall maturity matters.
Yeah, this is the difference between an 18-year-old and a 21 or 22-year-old. What comes to mind is I think we've all witnessed, sometimes in person, and sometimes it's rather contentious, or there's a little danger there. Sometimes it's just playful and I think I can pick on my old man because I'm feeling good about myself. I'm a 16-year-old and I've arrived, and being, there's a bit of a beat down coming.
Right. It's funny, there's another podcast by someone at ESPN and they do a voicemail segment. And every now and then it's like, just the time that you tried to buck up against your dad. It's everybody has that story that one time, man, I could take it. All right. Okay. And then, pretty much every story ends up with, and then he flipped me, flexed me, slammed me, choked me up against the wall. I was talking greasy to my mom and he comes in and, just does just lifts me up by my neck and everything. It's a rite of passage. It's a tale as old as time. So, but again, on the offensive line, when you're in close proximity, hand-to-hand combat, every single snap, that matters.
Now, I'm guessing that Romanas Frederique may not necessarily be that guy that feels that way about his ability in that way. Of course, he's got tremendous ability as a high school football player to be ready to sign at Miami. But at 176, a little lean at this point, but the corner out of Fort Lauderdale commits to the U.
Yeah, and I mean, there are specialists or categories of players. There's weight classes for a reason. So, he's probably not going to run the Oklahoma drill up against Deryc Plazz. But Romanas Frederique Jr., I believe his nickname is OG Frederique. This is a kid who can play, man. I know that his ranking is a little bit lower. Who is calling my phone right now? Somebody I'm not going to talk to. Anyways, but this is a kid who actually caught my eye last year. He was at Deerfield Beach High School, and y'all know that was my first job out of college. I've already told the Jason Pierre-Paults or all those things, whatever. So I always lend the eye to, what's Deerfield doing? What's Miramar doing? Places that I worked and everything. And yet there was like this kid, and he popped on the field a little bit. You're watching offense, he's playing wide receiver, scoring some touchdowns, cornerback, playing really well, a couple kick returns. This number 4 kid. And I'm like, okay, I was like, I saw the commitment and everything, and it says, obviously St. Thomas Aquinas. So I'm like, oh, let me see if he's on the other side from Ryan Mack or blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, nah, this is that number 4 who was at Deerfield last year. Okay, now. So, yeah, it was kind of that thing where you put the 2 and 2 together because, high school transfer season is always ongoing. So, yeah, even between the time that, he was really being evaluated and committed, he's changed his school, but, has, legit size at 6 feet tall, for a cornerback, which is great because, we have all these ankle biters, these mini mites in the, defensive backfield now and have had for years. So getting someone, okay, if he's listed at 6 foot, even if you want to call him 5'11", right? That's still better than your, 5'10" Trajan Bandy, your 5'10" Corey Couch, air quote, air quote, air quote, air quote, because they're not scraping anybody's, 5'10", either of them, even with the hair. So having somebody with, legit height and length works, has very good speed, multi-talented kid. Like I said, he played all 3 phases, offense, defense, and special teams when he was at Deerfield. Now he's stepping up to St. Thomas Aquinas, which, is just one of the premier programs for high school football and also for development. So, I think that bodes well for his growth this current year. Again, I don't necessarily think he's going to be a 4-star, which is possible, but I do think that you're going to see his rankings rise, just like Deryc Plazz, even if he stays in the 3-star range. But he's going to go up. He's going to play with other Miami commitments. He's going to play against. This is a guy. Again, you have Ryan Mack from the defensive backfield who's playing there with him at St. Thomas Aquinas. You have Chance Robinson, the 4-star wide receiver on offense. You got another James Madison, who's a 4-star wide receiver on offense. So you got multiple guys that you can ply your trade with and improve your skills with, iron sharpen iron kind of thing on a rep to rep, play to play, day to day basis there. And everything. So, yeah, I think that's really great. Obviously, by going to St. Thomas Aquinas, you can remove him from the early enrollment conversation because if you do not know, again, as being a parochial school, there is a second semester religion credit that cannot be commuted or missed. So that's why St. Thomas Aquinas players do not enroll early. They have to be there through the spring semester for that second part of the religion course. That's just what it is. But when you get a guy with this kind of ability, hey, that can work. Now, again, if we're talking about my own personal thing right now, which is maybe, okay, let's look at what the midline is. This is a guy who should be able to contribute on specials. All, whether that's return, whether that's coverage. And I'm not even saying as the return man, but he should be able to play on specials. It's really incumbent upon him to continue to develop his athleticism and skill to really work his way up into the depth chart. This is a guy who should at worst be a fringe 2-deep guy. If you're going 2 deep in the secondary, so we call that 10 guys maybe, he should at least be in that 12 to 13 range at a floor. But I don't think, from what I've seen, that he's an unplayable guy. And it's, again, going back through some of the misses of years past, we know the names of guys who were unplayable in the secondary. So he should at least be in the conversation for the 2 deep. And if everything develops, then he could be a rotation guy and then maybe a starter down the line again after, maybe 3 or 4 years. So I do see that he would be a longer term kind of player here, but that is still fine. And again, from what I saw when he was at Deerfield, the multi-talented skill set, this is a player that I think can hit that ceiling. But then again, it is also incumbent upon him. And just, sometimes things don't go the way that we plan. But I think that there is potential there for him to be a pretty good player if things work right.
We take your comments and questions here at the Voice of College Football. We appreciate your contributions in a number of ways. Please hit the like button. That's an easy thing to do, but it's meaningful for the YouTube algorithm. So please hit the like button. Share these videos out on social media. Not everyone knows. Just imagine a world in which there are folks out there, college football fans, and imagine even more so Miami fans who don't know that Cam is here every Wednesday night laying down the knowledge.
Man.
So that is your responsibility, folks. If you know such people out there, save them from this awful plight, especially as we steamroll toward media days and on into the August camp and into the season, folks. So bring some folks with you. We do not necessarily have comments and questions, or questions, I should say, in the chat. There's a little angst about recruiting by 3 or 4 people, shaking my head about all the 3 stars. And somebody else made a comment about where are the whales, something you addressed a couple weeks ago.
Hey man, it you know, the whales, wherever they are, they ain't here. So that's for darn sure. But you know, Miami continues to be in the top 5s or 10s of several guys. There's a guy who has Miami in his top 3, and he hasn't visited, and we haven't visited him. And so I'm like, you know, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like, I don't even remember this kid's name, but I think he's committing on like CBS Sports HQ, and I'm like, dude, like from where are you? Like this reeks of, you know, 2015, where like just dudes had Miami hats on the table just to like drive the conversation. Because like, again, even without being very good on the field, the brand drives conversation. Like there's, you know, like the brand value and relevance of the Miami Hurricanes is ever present, even without being good. So again, imagine a world if Miami were actually good. And again, we saw that for, you know, 3 weeks in, you know, 2017, bro. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'm like, yeah, this kid, whatever. But yeah, you know, like you have a Ricky Knight from West Palm Cardinal Newman. He commits to Florida State. He's a 3-star athlete, probably going to play running back. Ja'Cory Barney from Miami Palmetto profiles as a wide receiver, as an athlete. He picks Nebraska. You know, recently Zuri Madison from Lexington, Kentucky, picks Arkansas, which was pretty much the leader for him throughout. But all those guys, like after they visited here, you know, Elias Rudolph commits to Michigan as a 4-star Deerfield Beach defensive end. Justin Scott, 5-star defensive tackle from Chicago. He picks Ohio State after visiting Miami. You know, so like you're like, where's the beef? You know, where are these whales? You know, and I don't want to hear about silent commits. I don't want to hear about, well, they, you know, said, or they were thinking, or I don't want to hear about that. And, you know, again, without going into all the chapter and verse, I tweeted it as we were kind of reliving recruiting from previous years on the timeline yesterday. There's a blue chip player whose name you know, who went to a program that you know very well. They may or may not be the 2-time defending national champions. But anyways, who at the time of his recruitment, I went and I predicted that he was going to commit to Miami because he texted people at the University of Miami that he was coming to Miami. And I know this for a fact, and went with that. And then got additional context from other people in the recruiting world later that was like, yeah, he did do that. But what you don't know is that he also texted 3 other staffs that he was going there to try to up the bag before he committed to that team in Athens. So, you know, it's one of those things where I don't want to hear about that we've heard good things or maybe kind of sort of, you know, like I don't care about the labor pains. Show me the baby. And at this point, like, yeah, I mean, like, look, all of the, you can't have it both ways. You can't say we trust the evaluations and like a South Florida 3-star would be a middle of Nebraska 4-star, 5-star. And then be like, oh, well, we only have 3 stars and like blah, 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 which we don't only have 3 stars, but the ratio is not where you would want it to be at present. I get it. But you cannot have it both ways, right? So I think that there are some good gets in the 3-star group. I think that there are some that are maybe a little bit more dubious than others. At least I am more dubious of them at present than I would like to be. But, you know, at the end of the day, you still got to go get superstars. You still got to go get these, you know, 4-star, 5-star blue chip top of the roster guys. And if you look at all of the guys that we've spoken about as being, you know, at the top end of the roster for the Miami Hurricanes, Tyler Van Dyke, starting quarterback, was like the 3rd or 4th highest rated quarterback recruit since Kyle Wright in 03. Blue chip, Connecticut Player of the Year. He was the baseball player of the year his junior year, went undefeated on the mound, led them to a state championship. They went undefeated his senior season. You know, so that's a clear blue chip guy. All the running backs, blue chip dudes. You know, Leonard Taylor, top 10 player in the country. Cam Kinchins was a top 20 safety in the country, and has even exceeded what his ranking was to be, you know, first team All-American. James Williams, who hasn't been he hasn't been Sean Taylor come alive again, but he's been pretty damn good. And again, was another top 10 overall player in his class. You know what I mean? Like, the dudes at the top of the roster, the dude, you know, Nigel Kelly, a high 4-star blue chip dude who I think is going to take capital T, capital L, the leap this year. I've been called it. I'm standing on that. Like, I'm 10 toes. I'm like, I got my full everything behind Nigel Kelly taking a huge leap forward this year. But if you look at it, again, he's young for his grade or level, whatever you want to call it now. But yeah, he's young for his chronology or classification, and dynamic as hell. But again, if you look at the Francis Mauigoa, 5-star offensive lineman, probably going to come in and start at right tackle this year as a true freshman. Bro, at the top of the roster, you're going to have these guys. So that means if you had to get, and if you're just, even if you want to reverse engineer it, right? Let's look at all the starters. Let's look at all the top end guys on the roster and then go see what the recruiting rankings were. And if it's invariably or, you know, 98% 4 stars and 5 stars, what do you need to go get then? More 4 stars and 5 stars. What are we not getting necessarily this year? Them 4 stars and 5 stars yet. And I do leave that open. And obviously, you know, Marquis Lightfoot being the latest blue chipper to commit to Miami, great. There are other ones out there, outstanding. What's his name? I forget. But the 5-star defensive end from Arizona picked Arizona. Elijah Rushing, who was considering Miami and every other blue blood program, elite program around the landscape. And you know, he decided that, hey, he's going to stay in the desert and, you know, go to Arizona and, you know, blaze his own path forward and write his own legacy. And why not put on for his hometown? It'd be great if guys in South Florida felt the same, but they don't. So whatever. But yeah, that 5-star that Miami was after, that everybody was after, he said to everybody who's not Arizona, thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to stay out here. Cool. Fine. Okay. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to start to close on some of these guys. And I think where the angst comes in terms of like the comments, in terms of the fan base at large and things like this. Long story short, recruiting staffers at Miami have been talking shit, right? They've been posting gifs. They've been putting up quotes. They've been, like, hey, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. We're grinding in silence, but we're going to be successful in public. You know what I mean? Like all those things, like, all the gifts of whale hunting, like, oh yeah, we're in the Serengeti, we're big game hunting, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing this, we're doing that. Are you? Because I don't see it, and then it's like, well, I know people push back on this, but there was a time in his recruitment that Miami was at the front for 5-star Justin Scott. There was a time. Michigan passed them. And then Ohio State passed Michigan. And then, okay, now it looks like, well, Miami finished 3rd or 4th. At a time, a snapshot in time, Miami was at the top, right? But you didn't close. Well, these other teams, and there's a proximity, and the NIL game has changed, and da-da-da-da. Cool. But again, you're out here all of these different Miami staffers tweeting all these things, implying and not inferring, implying and hinting at and then don't nothing happen. And this is repeated time and time and time again. That's where the frustration comes from. And hopefully that changes, but we're into the middle of July now, and we're going to need to start making some things shake on the recruiting trail.
Talk Miami football, talk college football all the time. We've got a Discord that you can catch by just going to patreon.com/MarkRogersTV. There it is on the banner right there. Andy wants to talk offense. Cam, do you think Mario lets Shannon Dawson drop that Geno Smith, West Virginia offense here, or will he force him to do more power run like he obviously wants to?
Andy Mac, that's a great question. I know you sent me an email about something a while. I think I was on here talking about voice acting or something, and Andy sent me an email that I didn't respond to, but I'm going to look at that. I'm going to respond. I know it was like a year and a half ago. I know you thought I forgot. Andy, I didn't, and I appreciate that, and I'm going to correspond with you. So I just want to let you know that in public. And honestly and truly, thank you very much for sharing that information. Getting to the point of the question, there's going to be an integration of power run with a Mario Cristobal offense. Now, hopefully there are elements of that. So where the question comes from is, I think it was like it wasn't Max Preps because they don't really do college, but it was like ESPN or CFB Home or some social media account tweeted out the other day that that game that Geno Smith had against Baylor that was like 700 yards and 8 touchdowns in the shootout game his last year. And everybody's like, yo, and then Gabby Arudia, intrepid recruiting journalist with 247, started at State of the U, just saying. But he quoted that and said, offensive coordinator, Shannon Dawson. So, just putting perspective on that. So then everybody's like, yo, are we going to do, look, we're not running that same offense that Geno Smith was running at West Virginia. Also, as well, in addition, Geno Smith had, like final call in that offense. So like he could, it could have been called as a run play, and then he could check he had freedom of the full playbook. And Stedman Bailey was still there. I mean, they're best friends forever. So he was just like, look, I know that I can throw the ball and number 3 is going to be open and number 3 is going to be there because we've done this since, 5 ever. So he would do some of those things, and whatnot, and kind of skew things towards the pass a little bit. So it's not going to be that. What I do think is that we're going to see elements of that air raid pass scheme integrated. And, air raid systems can produce big plays through the air and on the ground, right? By alignment, right? You're going to hopefully get some guys out of the box, and then you can create some creases. You have all these, big time backs in Miami, and, and improving and growing physically offensive line. So there's clearly going to be more integration of a power run game than what was actually, and I'm going to look this up really quick. CFBstats.com. That's the website I usually go to. But if I come down here to West Virginia, way at the bottom, that was, I believe that game was in, nope. Hold on.
I've looked up the box score.
That was 2012?
Yes.
Okay.
Geno put up 35 in the first half, 35 in the second half. Oh, yeah. Stedman Bailey caught 13 balls for 305 and 5 TDs.
Right.
The ball barely hit the ground, 45 of 51.
Yeah, stupid. But I'm looking at the overall statistics, right? So they ran the ball 469 times that year. He threw the ball 532. So you had a 53-47 pass to run ratio. I'll be damned if we, and like, I don't necessarily have a problem with it, especially if we have the improved, consistent efficiency and improved explosion, because Miami was one of the least explosive teams that we've ever seen from the Miami Hurricanes, like ever last year. But I find it hard to believe that a Mario Cristobal team is going to have, a 53, 54% pass to 47, 46% run overall ratio. I just don't see that. So I do think that it's going to be more, you easily, flip that or more, so like a 47% pass to 53% run or greater on the run. I think, but yeah, I just think that, infusing these schemes and skewing the run not as heavily, but still featured, I think is the way that things are going to go. So it won't be exactly what we saw with that, ridiculous Geno Smith game when he was, super duper on fire. But yeah, and last year, just for context, and I knew because people were going to ask, Miami threw the ball 413 times and ran it 412. So one play away from 50-50. I still think that Cristobal would still like that to be a little heavier on the run overall, but that's just me.
And I don't want to play with the numbers too much here, but that West Virginia team ran just about 1,000 plays, correct? And Miami ran about 830.
Yeah, Miami ran just over 800, and
West Virginia didn't play an extra game because they went to a bowl game.
Go 530.
So divided by 13 as opposed to divided by 12.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But still, they're running quite a few more plays per game.
Exactly. So I mean, that speaks to the tempo. That speaks to a few different things. So yeah.
And for everybody out there, and I hear this all the time, or at least this is where a lot of people's heads seem to be at concerning offensive football, is just the answer to everything is just throw it. If you're going to score a lot of points just because you throw the ball constantly. Well, Geno Smith's still playing in the NFL, and we just read off his two main targets. However, it didn't go so well for that West Virginia team. The next 2 weeks, they put up 2 touchdowns each against the likes of Texas Tech and Kansas State, lost 49-14 and 55-14, and they took a rough spill the rest of the season.
Yeah, that was when Geno Smith's Heisman candidacy died. I remember that, and up to that point, I think I was still doing the Miramar sports blog because, I was teaching at Miramar still at the time. And did for several more years, but was doing that in addition to State of the U. And I just remember the 1 week I was just like, I'm going to find all of the Geno Smith content and put it out there. And it didn't, again, a random unaffiliated blog for a random high school football team in South Florida did numbers because in the Q score of sports personalities on earth, Geno Smith was number 1. You know what I mean? He was the top of every search, the top of every performance, every recap show. I mean, in sport, out of sport. I mean, he's getting mentioned on Good Morning America. I mean, it was stupid. He was larger than life. He was, yeah. And then you cap all of that with, a 600 something yard, 8 touchdown day, where it just, yeah, again, as Mark said, the ball barely hit the turf when you threw it. You know what I mean? It was just insane. And then obviously, yeah, you can kind of, as did Icarus, he flew too close to the sun, and then his wings melted and he crashed to the earth. But to that point, man, yeah, it was there. You really couldn't honestly have a college football conversation without, if not starting with, prominently featuring Geno Smith. So, yeah, but things changed.
Yeah, they started 5-0, and by the end, they were losing to Syracuse 38-14 in the Pinstripe Bowl.
Bingo. Oh, no, and sorry, it was the next week when they went to Texas and beat Texas by a field goal. That was the week that he was atop every search and whatever metric across sport. It was wild. But Kid has talent. Kid, I mean, he's in his 30s now. Guy, man, has talent, which he's continuing to show.
Yeah, I'm sure the 70 spot and all the numbers and the 8 touchdowns then put him even more so on the map. And they were going to Texas the next week, and this is Texas. Texas is Texas, plus Texas is only 3 years removed from playing in the BCS championship game. They're
bingo.
Yeah.
Now let's stop talking about Geno Smith and turn this back into the Miami Hurricanes. What I think can benefit is Tyler Van Dyke having an offense that like does anything that he does well, like just anything, which clearly did not happen under Josh Gaddis, to the point where even Josh Gaddis himself famously said, yeah, I didn't really even talk to him or have a meeting about scheme and what he wanted to do until the bye week there or whatever. But your star quarterback, potentially projected as a first-round draft pick coming in, like ostensibly like a guy, if not the guy that you evaluated when you took this job, you didn't at all consider anything. And again, go back and look it up. It was in a Monday presser. He said it live and in person, like with his chest in front of people, right? Shannon Dawson, I mean, I think he says, okay, I'm not saying it's the same as Geno Smith, but I know the big number 9 for the Miami Hurricanes, he can chuck that ball, right? He has a strong arm. He does well throwing the ball vertically. I already talked about smash, high-low read that has a flag behind a curl. And he's surgical on that. Even if the defender sinks to the flag and he's like, cool, I'm going to dump it to the curl, the short, the low receiver, and let him work still. And then look at all those flea flickers. Remember that game against Pittsburgh in 21 when they just kept it? Look, we're running all the flea flickers, all the double moves, all the verticals, y'all can't check us. Y'all can't run with us. And we're going to do crazy stuff on top of just whatever regular scheming we're going to do. And just at the end of the day, at the end of all of those things, Tyler, throw that bitch. Don't dink and dunk. Throw that bitch. And he did, and it was great. So now Shannon Dawson, having done this for a long time, being an air raid guy, and then, to the heart of the question, looking back at what was done, you can look at last year, when he had explosive offense, when you look at all the way through his career trajectory, being an air raid guy, having coached Geno Smith, which is why, by the way, if you didn't know, Geno Smith had been having workouts, plural, at the U. Also because destination location, guys live in Miami, guys want to vacation in Miami, and obviously Geno's from South Florida. So yeah, when he wants to come work out, they're in the Carroll Sulphur Indoor Practice Facility, because it's like, hey, I'm going to call my old offensive coordinator. I'm going to go down to the U. We're going to use that facility. We're going to go do that. And then you see, okay, cool. All those things line up and say, cool, what can I do schematically on offense that plugs into what Tyler Van Dyke does well? Throw the ball vertical. Great. And I think that he has a lot of ways to do that. And when you infuse some of those schemes into the offense, which was clearly just a moribund mess last year, then you can unlock some of what made us excited about Tyler from a performance standpoint, because it wasn't even just potential like, okay, Jay Garcia, he has a strong arm and this high-rated recruit, and we'll see. Again, record-setting performance as a redshirt freshman, coming off the bench third in 21, because, and I know everybody wants to say, go back and watch the film, go back and look at the plays, right, or the play chart. Deryc King started, he got injured, Jay Garcia came in, broke his ankle, and then Tyler Van Dyke came in, and then went on that insane run. But we've seen him do these things. So unlike Josh Gaddis, who apparently didn't give a damn and just didn't even check, hopefully Shannon Dawson is somebody who says, cool, I have a history of vertical passing games, of explosive passing games, and I have somebody whose strength is pushing the ball vertically down the field. Obviously, when he doesn't have an AC shoulder joint injury like he did last year, which, I give him credit for wanting to play through, but like he should be. That season was so lost. It was, yeah. Anyways, but if he doesn't have a shoulder injury, you throw the ball. So, yeah, let's lean into those things. And I think that even if it doesn't look exactly like Geno Smith did in 2011, 12, whatever, if you infuse some of those things, to plug into what Tyler Van Dyke does well that could be advantageous for the Miami Hurricanes. And that is what I'm looking for, in addition to an improved running game that's going to be a foundation of a Mario Cristobal offense. Like it, love it, hate it, whatever. A former offensive lineman wanting to have a good offensive line and a strong power run game to be able to control, just the overall operations, that's going to be there. But hopefully he's opening up things a little bit. And I think that by hiring Shannon Dawson, you're talking to, especially on the passing schemes, that things are going to open up, and hopefully we're able to find some receivers to be able to do some stuff.
Sometimes various coaches, both assistant and head coaches, are considered to be not really good at what they do, but that's in context. That's not that they don't know football, don't know what they're doing. It's
Right.
versus the competition. There has to be a tier system. There has to be a ranking or a rating. There has to be a worst coach in America, whoever that is. That doesn't mean they don't know what they're doing or they don't know football. But in the case of this Josh Gaddis thing, my goodness, regardless of your industry, regardless of your craft or what you are asking your staff, your team, your unit, whatever the case might be, to do, you walk into a situation like that, and to not go right to the heart of what the success was last year and try to duplicate the success, then go to the weaknesses, try to shore those up, but start with the successes of your number one player who's tossing for 350 and 4 touchdowns about every week for 8 consecutive games.
Yeah.
It's
funny, just like Allen Iverson said in his practice rant. It's funny to me too. It's funny to me too. I don't understand why that was. And then why you would come out and then freely admit that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you could just say, hey, tried some things. We're looking at some things. We're going to go back at it. We got a bye week here. We're going to, try to shore some things up and move forward. He could have just given the coach speak answer, but no, I haven't really, sat and spoken with Tyler. What did you say to me? What did you say to everybody in public? Like, there's a microphone. This is on video. This is still up on the Miami Hurricanes YouTube channel. That there's bloggers like myself and, full-time beat writer journalists that are going to talk about that. That that we can hear you. You know what I mean? But hey, that is Maryland's issue now. But I don't even necessarily think it's going to be that much of an issue, because Mike Locksley, even though he has given Josh Gaddis the opportunity to be the named offensive coordinator, trust and believe, Locksley's running that offense.
And he also brought in Kevin Sumlin. So he's put some minds together there.
Yeah.
To supersede anything Josh Gaddis is doing. Exactly.
Which, I mean, wow. How the mighty have fallen. Josh Gaddis, like that, I don't know.
Well, you certainly took off on where I was going, coming off the question about the offense and where it was headed was Tyler Van Dyke. And of course, he is the guy. And so it seems like you're pretty confident that he can once again be the player of 2021 8-game stretch versus, if he gets a reasonable level of support from his wide receivers in particular, they obviously have to help him out to a much greater degree than they did last year.
Yeah, and it might not be exactly to that level, but I mean, in that caliber of performance, and that's the thing. We've seen him do it. So it would be one thing, I don't know that about, anybody else on the roster. I don't know that about Jakari Brown, even from high school, because he was still, a 55%, 180 yards passing, 130 yards rushing kind of guy in high school. So it's not even like he was, just dotting them up or anything. But no, we've seen Tyler Van Dyke do this with our own eyes. We've talked about it. So it's not even it's not extrapolation at all. This is not hypothetical. This is not projection of what we've seen him do. This is not he was the backup for a couple years and now he's stepping into the starting role. And so we're not going to scale what his performance is. We've seen this guy do it. So, yeah, I believe that. I mean, I've seen him do it. I know that he can do it. Obviously, he needs support from the running game, from the wide receivers, and the wide receiver room, which is a gigantic question mark for me. Oh boy. Yeah, just because we're gonna need a guy, and I don't know that we have a guy. And God love him and everything, and he's productive as hell, and he's feisty, and you need leadership like this. You need just program. You need guys in your program like him. But Xavier Restrepo is a 3 or a 4, man. He and they're roommates and everything, and they have that synergy where, like, it's the explosion is not what Gino and Stedman was, because again, I'm talking about this because I worked at Miramar High School and I called these games for years. They literally played together their entire lives, and it really didn't matter what the play call was. Gino knew where Stedman was going to be, and it could be, a 3-yard stop or a 60-yard go. I'm going to find him, and it's going to happen. And optimist level at Miramar, look, anywhere and everywhere. That's what the connection was. So now with Tyler Van Dyke and Xavier Restrepo, they have that similar thing, but Xavier Restrepo is 7-8 yards from the line of scrimmage all the time and everything, which is fine. And he's not really going to outrun anybody. He's really not going to outjump people on a consistent basis and everything. He's fine. And again, you need guys like this. You need leaders like this. You need feisty players who are, going to just have that joie de vivre and like everything. You need guys like that. But him being your most productive receiver leaves a lot to be desired. And hopefully there's somebody else that can step up and support as well. But yeah, there's a lot that needs to happen. It's not just that, but that is atop the list of conversation, at least for today.
And of course, that Pitt team that Miami defeated did not lose another game in the ACC that year. They were undefeated otherwise in the ACC and were the conference champions. And I would guess that some of that misdirection approach came because Pitt had the sack leadership as a team in college football that year.
Yeah, and obviously, you have to mitigate that and then say, okay, we're going to, try to neutralize what they do well. And, where are areas that we can take advantage of them? And said, well, we can blur them. We can go vertical. We can do these things. And, have, again, we're going to have Will Mallory on a wheel route. We're going to have these other kinds of, Elijah Arroyo. No, he wasn't here then. But yeah, the other tight ends in there, catching touch. I mean, there's things that we can do and ways that we can do it. And I think that we can. No, it was Elijah Arroyo. Yeah. Even caught a touchdown in that game. You know what I mean? But there are things that we can do to take advantage of a deficiency in their defense. And Miami, was able to do that in 2021 at Pittsburgh. And hopefully we'll be able to do that, to many teams this year. But it'll be a battle this season. Obviously want to take a step forward. There's going to be losses. Just want to prepare y'all now. This is not a national championship caliber team. This is not a 1-loss, 2-loss team program at this point. So, get that out your brains. The over-under line right now is set at 7.5, which is 7-5 or 8-4, which will still be steps forward from what last year was. So, I mean, there's going to be growing pains as well as we try to get towards the overall result that we desire from this program. But I think that, there's clear path forward to take steps along that journey. So, yeah, but we're going to talk a lot more about all of those things in the coming weeks and months as we head towards the season and everything. But, I mean, as you and I sit here now, already know, week 2, Texas A&M. Circle it. I don't even have a pen here, marker, but take that calendar out, get that. Actually, I do have a pencil. Ha ha. But yeah, take that out. Digitally, mentally circle that game, but because obviously, of the non-conference, that is the matchup, and that is a talented team. And if they weren't very good last year, and Miami wasn't either, but yeah, I think that game is going to tell us a lot about the composition and fortitude of this team. for this season. So September 9th, I believe it is. Just know that Texas A&M game. And again, respect all opponents and fear none. Don't overlook anybody else because, you could pop up at Hard Rock Stadium and Middle Tennessee State could have a once in 97 year passing performance, the likes of which that has not been seen in college football. I mean, I think it was actually more than that, but a once in a lifetime, we'll call it, because it was really that. A once in a lifetime vertical passing performance out the middle of thin air. And then you look at them the rest of the time. I mean, before that, after that, like it was a singular thing. What happened with their passing offense that day? But in the end, it was damn near 50 points in an L for the Hurricanes. So, I mean, hopefully we don't see any more of that kind of stuff. But, you're really going to focus on Texas A&M in the non-con and move forward. But it's going to be an interesting season.
Miami, Texas A&M combined for 10 wins last year. I'm going to put them in the 15 to 17 category between the two this year.
Seems reasonable.
Cam, what's going on at State of the U?
Man, you got Justin DeTavio, who's been doing yeoman's work, man. He has Storm Chasers, so his away game previews for the locations that the Miami Hurricanes will be traveling to this year. So if you're looking for advanced notice of where to stay, what to do, where to eat, what sights to see along the road, if you are a road warrior going to any or all of these games, Storm Chasers, you have to be plugged in with. Also, his schematic breakdowns are up there on State of the U. We got Kappa Kane has a thing with the new tailgating outfit thing, so you can go look at that if you're looking for some new Miami Hurricanes threads. Then we're going to hop back in there starting up pretty soon with our position and player previews, which should be coming up either starting this week or next week, and then just rolling towards the season. So, we're always open, stateoftheu.com, socials at the State of the U. And yeah, my personal Twitter is at Underwood Sports. Always here to talk to you guys, always here to interact with you dudes and dudettes, or non-binary people. But, hey, if you want to talk Miami Hurricanes, I'm here for it. Or other things, which, oh my goodness, super excited. Unfortunately, after 20 seasons, Padma Lakshmi has left Top Chef. She is elected. She has another food series that she show that is where she goes around and experiences things, cooks and everything. So she's focusing on that. Her daughter is, a burgeoning model in her early teen years. So she's focusing on her family time and also her other series. So she's left. And the number one choice, I think the only clear choice, was Kristen Kish, a former Top Chef winner, to come back and be the new host. And that was actually announced yesterday that is the decision that they've made. And I know that you guys how much I love Top Chef. And honestly, it's the best competition show on television. And with Padma leaving, there was a big question mark. Think Bear Bryant leaving Alabama, right? When they're winning and everything. Think of the line of succession that's going to happen when Nick Saban leaves Alabama currently, or Kirby Smart leaves Georgia, even if it's for Alabama, whatever. You know what I mean? You're on top, and then all of a sudden you have a change. This is that in the world of Top Chef, in the world of competition, reality television, and the fact that they made what I clearly thought was the one right and true choice really, really, really excites me, because I am a Top Chef stan. I love that show. I've watched every episode of every single season. I have 2 of the cookbooks already. Actually 5 if you count the 2 Top Chef cookbooks, and then 3 cookbooks of competitor chefs that I have also purchased as well. It goes deeper than just surface level. So I'm very, very excited about that. I know y'all might don't care, but I care. And so if I care, I tell y'all. But anyways, I'm always here, man. I'm weird and I like to talk about other things, but whether it's Top Chef, whether it's Hurricanes or whatever else, hop in the mentions, say what's up, always interact, stop by stateoftheu.com and always listen, like, subscribe, all those things. I'm done ranting. Thank you guys so much.
I just don't know how one individual can have near or justified expert level knowledge on multiple topics, on more than multiple, but
hey man, I'm a repository of knowledge. and everything. So yeah, but like I said, either way, appreciate you guys listening. Appreciate you guys indulging me, and supporting us and everything. So we'll talk to you guys next week. Hopefully we'll have more commitments than anything, but if not, we'll talk about that as well.
Folks, next Wednesday, and bring some folks with you, 2 or 5 or 50, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Cam, thank you. Have a great rest of your week.
Do the same. I'll talk to you guys. See you.
Big 12 Media Day is going on right now. We're headed over to the main channel. Big 12 Media Day is going to talk it up over there. So please join us in about 15 minutes on the main channel.